Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars. SoundCartel. From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. Is fear holding you back from achieving the things you want in your life or business? Joe Pane is an emotional fitness expert who guides business leaders through the challenges the world throws at them. His new book, Courage to Be You, Your Guide to Mastering Uncertainty, gives readers the tools to handle the stresses and pressures that life presents. First, Chris Ashmore asks Joe, how does fear hold us back?
Unfortunately, Chris, most people correlate fear with uncertainty. So anytime they experience any form of uncertainty, and it comes in many expressions, pressure, stress, challenge, even adventure, but stress and pressure is very, very common in the working world, in the business world, as you know. And if we correlate and put a connection or develop a relationship between uncertainty and fear, what tends to happen is that any time stress and pressure builds up, we react in a very unresourceful fashion. So one of the ways that we can utilize uncertainty, stress and pressure is by actually correlating it with what it actually is correlated with, which is growth. And nature shows us that anything in nature, when met with an obstacle, will grow, will expand, will go to its own next level. And I'm sure that most of us realise that any time we've faced any form of uncertainty and gotten through to the other side, we've become better for it. So that's how we can transform our relationship with fear rather than having it hold us back.
Well, in your book, you write about 3 universal fears. What are they and why are they important to understand?
Yeah, well, the universal fears straight up are the fear of not being enough, the fear of not belonging, and the fear of not being loved. So what happens is any time our responsibilities expand or our life changes or we're broaching something new and unfamiliar, we begin to question ourselves in terms of whether we are enough for that journey, which is completely and utterly naturally a very normal, healthy response. When Silvana's my wife, when Silvana and I had our baby boys, our twin boys, we went from no kids to 2 kids overnight, or 2 babies overnight. We didn't have a thorough conversation about it, but you couldn't help but feel like, gee, are we enough to handle what's coming with these babies coming home from the hospital, right? So that's natural and normal. And in the business world, whenever we are challenged with a new role or a new set of responsibilities or learning a new skill set, it's natural to question whether we are enough or not. And the reason in the book I highlight this particular universal fear, and we'll talk about the other 2 briefly in a moment, is that just to validate the experience of the reader to go, okay, well, this is normal that I feel like this. It's not that I'm not enough. It's just that it's normal to feel that way when we're broaching something new, especially something that has 0 reference points of experience. And the second universal fear, the fear of not belonging, is that all of us want to belong to a tribe, a family, a team, a group, a country, something. We all identify to some degree with some kind of group or tribe. So one of the biggest fears that we have, and this is deeply unconscious for most people, is that the history of man shows that we can't survive on our own. We are all here, literally, like I'm using this microphone that God knows how much engineering and thoughts and work and everything, all the people involved in the technology of this microphone for me to talk to Chris Ashmore. We're all in this together kind of thing. So the fear of not belonging is we want to make sure that we behave in a way where we're still accepted by our tribe, whatever that tribe is. And the fear of not being loved is the ultimate rejection that we're afraid of, which is being rejected deeply for who we are. And that's something that shows up. So whenever we are stepping up and expanding ourselves, these 3 fears will show up. And this is completely natural. And we just need to keep stepping forward, and the fears will evolve and transform as we evolve and transform through that new experience.
You know, Mazars have been a long-time supporter of SoundCartel, and now they're helping us bring you this podcast. To find out how Mazars can support your business, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.
For many of us, I suppose for most of us, there's a time in our life that we question the direction that we're heading, and that holds true for business owners too. How do we become unlost? How do we find our direction?
So it is very normal as well to, at some point, begin questioning the very things that have been driving us, or cease to be motivated by the things that once excited us and motivated us. And what this is a normal, and we'll talk about the journey from ambition to meaning briefly in a moment, but the journey from ambition to meaning is an evolution of values. It's a shift in priorities. And it doesn't mean that we have to leave the business or leave the relationship or even leave the country. It means that we need to keep up with who we've become. So in other words, making sure that as business owners, we have got hobbies or other interests that engage the evolution of our values, so we remain engaged with what matters, which are our values, because our values are something that we experience on a very deep emotional basis. In Courage to Be You, in the book, I describe a value as an emotional compass. So it's important that we follow that emotional compass. Now, if that emotional compass is leading us in a completely different direction to the business that we're in, well, then we need to make different decisions. But quite often it's changing the way that we are doing business in the same market, same skill set. It's the way we are doing the business that needs to evolve and change. The way we're running our relationships, the way we're managing our employees, the way that we're navigating through whatever complexities we're facing in our particular market. So that's important to realize, okay, this doesn't work anymore. The way I used to work in terms of what I prioritized and what I valued before no longer seems to work for me. And that's because we're all, as I said, on this journey at some stage from ambition to meaning, where we're moving away more from an egocentric me existence to a heart-centric, others-based existence. And so there has to be some changes in the way that we do our business. And as I said, in a very macro way, for some people it's leaving that business. But for most of us, it's just changing the way that we do what we do.
How do we then change from that ambition-driven world to the meaning-driven world?
Yeah, there's lots of ways, and I'll just stick to one, and that is integration is key. It's integrating ambition into meaning. So in other words, making sure that the way that we're making money is we're making money in a meaningful way, defined by you and defined by me, Chris. So in other words, everyone's got a different definition of what making money in a meaningful way means. So it's making sure that the way that you are making money is in a way that you see that you are genuinely adding value to that market, that community, that group, and you get rewarded in kind. So that's the emotional check-in. There are many, many layers to this journey from ambition to meaning, but that's one of them.
Terrific. Well, before we go, Joe, do you have a formula to achieve fulfillment?
Yeah, in my book, I refer to Napoleon Hill, who wrote a famous book called Outwitting the Devil in 1938. And in that book, he describes what I refer to as a fulfillment formula. And the fulfillment formula is made up of a handful of core ingredients. Namely, it's passion plus talent together combined, multiplied by association, so the people that we spend most of our time with, multiplied again by the actions that we take, plus faith, in other words, trust, equals the fulfillment formula. Or in other words, this is the direction of success by actually combining those 5 key ingredients in that particular combination.
That was Joe Pane, an expert in emotional fitness. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow @BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.